Hello everyone, so I hope you all are doing good. So now in this video, let's talk about the types in the Solidity programming language. So please like the video so that more people can see this video, and please subscribe to the channel as well, so I would be motivated to post the videos like this. So let's start. So now in this video, I will create a new file as the types.sol, and I have already created it. So you can also create it, and then we can just write a smart contract again. And then in this video, we will see about the types in the Solidity. So what are the available types? So we can just define here the pragma line at the top as the pragma Solidity, and then the version of the Solidity, like it will be the 0.8.7 which we'll be using. So we have defined the version, so that in which version we are now using the Solidity, and then we can just define a smart contract. So to the contract, and then the name of our contract, like I will give the name as the types, and then now we have just created a smart contract. And now we can just create some data types variables for that. So first it will be the Uint. So the Uint is like the unsigned integer where we cannot hold the negative values inside that, and we have multiple types of the Uint types in the Solidity, like Uint 8, you have the Uint of the 8 bits, you have the 256 bits, but I will define only the Uint here, which is the default, and then Uint, then the modifier like the public. So the Solidity will create a getter function for this public variable, the Uint, and then we can just define the name of the Uint, like I will define the my integer. So I have defined a Uint public and then the my int, and then we can just define here a function. So it will be the function and then the keyword, and we have the function keyword, and then we can just define the name of the function like set values. And then in this function we will set all of the values, like I will declare some variables here with the different data types, and I will set all of the values through this function, and this function would also be the public. So we want it to be public, and then we can just declare the parenthesis, and now we can just declare the value, like in the function this will be type of the pure function where we will receive the input, and then we will return the same input. So it will be the set values, and then we can just receive the value throughout this function, like it will be the Uint. We need to define the type here also, like the Uint, and then the my int, and it is a local variable throughout this function scope only. So my int will be then set it to this int, like there I will just set here the my int, the original my int will be equals to the my int. So now we have defined the variable of the my int as the Uint, and now in this function we are now assigning the values to this my int. If I will now just compile it, the types.sol, and now we have compiled, and now I will just go and deploy it. Click on the deploy. Now you will see our smart contract has been deployed, and now you will see we have a log here also, which is like a success log. And now we can just expand it to see the changes, like I have the my int, so the by default value will be equals to the 0 because we haven't defined anything in this Uint. So first, if I will now give a value to this Uint throughout this function, like there we have the function name, which is now the callable because we have the public keyword here, so we can call this function from here, and then we can give the value inside this text box, like this contains a function. This is the inputs of the function where we can give the inputs. So I will give the inputs at the 15, and I will click on the transact. Now you will see the value will be updated of the my int. You will click my int. Now you will see now we have the 15 value of the Uint my. So now this is the integer value. Now the next data type we are going to work is with the string. So we need to define the string with the keyword of the string, and then the modifier of the string, like it will be the public again, and then we need to define the name of the string, like the name will be the my string. And then now the default value is the empty string, so it will be the empty string now. So to give a value, then we can define it in the set functions, in the set values. So it will be the string and the name of the string, like it will be a temporary variable, like it will be the my string. So we have defined here the string as the my string as a temporary variable, but there is a catch. Like if we have defined here the string, then we need to define here the keyword as the memory, because we need to explicitly define the data location of the string in the Solidity. So as per the Solidity 0.8, so we need to define the data location of the string if we are defining the string, or like the reference variable like mapping or the arrays. So we need to define the memory, and if we define here the memory, so it shows us that it will be the temporary memory variable of the string. So my string would be a temporary variable which will be destroyed after this function is executed. So we need to define here the memory, and then we can just define the my string will be equals to the my string. If I will now save, and if I will now just compile again, now you will see it is now compiled again. Now I will just remove all of the previously deployed contracts, and I will just deploy it again from there. So we will deploy, and then you will see now we have the types. Now we have the two functions in the set values, two parameters in the set values. Now you will define the myInt, the value will be 0, string the 0. If you will define the value of the my, it would be again the 12, and the string would be name. And if you will just click on the transact, now you will see there will be a log, and then you will see once you will click on the string, then you will see we have a Nikhil in the string, and once you will click on the myInt, the value would be updated of the integer. So now these are the Uint and the string now we have discussed. And now the next data type we would discuss is the mapping. So we need to define it as a mapping. And about the mapping, it is like an array of the key value pairs. Like you have to define the key, like key would be the integer or any other format, and then the value would be a format. Like we can define there the objects in the JavaScript, like the objects have the key and value pair, and each key should be of the specific type, and then the each value should be of the type which we define in the mapping. And then we need to define the value of the same type which we have defined here. So first there is a mapping keyword, and then there is a parenthesis after that, and then we need to define the key type. Like the key for this time, for the moment, I will add it as the Uint, so the key will be the Uint. And then we need to define here the type, so this will be the arrow function keyword like we do in the JavaScript or in the ES6. And then we need to define here the value type. The value type would be like, I will add it as the string. So now we have defined the mapping with the Uint and the string. So if you want to work with the mapping, now we have defined here, and now after the mapping, now we need to define here the modifier again, like it will be the public, and then we need to define the name of the mapping, like it will be the my mapping. So I would now save. Now we need to set the value of the mapping. Now we need to add here the Uint and the string. So now we are already getting the Uint and the string in the my string. So now we will work with the mapping. So it will be the my mapping, and then we need to define here the key. So the my mapping, the key would be like the Uint. So we can define the Uint as we defined here the myInt. So it will be the Uint key, and then the value would define is we have defined with the my string. So it will contain the key of the myInt which we will be defining here, and then it will contain the value of the my string automatically. So if I will now save, and if I will now just compile again, go to the deployment sections, remove all of the previously deployed contracts and deploy it again. Now we are now seeing the types, and then you will see now we have the set values. So by default the mapping, you need to define here the key. So if you would define here the key anything like the 1, so it will give you the 0 because the string is the empty string as of now. But if you will just set the values of the Uint 256, like it will be the 1, and then the string would be the Nikhil again. So now you will click on the transact, and now the mapping holds the 1 value as the key and the value as the Nikhil. So the key is 1 and the value is the Nikhil. If you will define the key as the 1, click on the my mapping, so you will see now we have the string of the Nikhil. But if you will just change it like the 1, 10 or anything, you will just click on that. Now you will see now we have the empty string because it contains just like an ID. So each ID should have a value. So you can just understand it as an ID and the value pair inside that. So now we have defined about the mapping, and now the next data type we would be used is the address. And the address is like an address of a smart contract. So to define an address, it will be the address, modifier of the address, like it will be the public, and then we need to define the name of the address, like it will be the my address. And now we have defined the address, and now we need to define the getter function also for the address. So after this string, we need to define as the address. And the address we will be defining is like the name of the, again as the underscore at the my address as a temporary variable. And then we can just define here the address. My address will be equals to the my address which we'll be getting throughout the function. So it will be the my address. So the address, so by default the address would be the 0000 into that. And now if you will define here the address, so it will get the address of the smart contract where we can define here the addresses. So now we need to define here as the my address, sorry, and now we need to just save. And now we have just compiled the Solidity again. We need to go to the deployments, remove all of the previously deployed contracts and click on the deploy again. Now we have the types also. So now we have now deployed our contract. Now you will see now we have the address. So by default we haven't defined anything throughout the address. So the default address would be like this 00 address. So you will see now we have the 0 address. But if you will just set the values like Uint 56, like it with the 1, the string would be again like the hi, and then the address, I will just copy the address from there. So we have now deployed the smart contract from this address. So I will now copy this and I will now paste this address over here and click on the transact. Now you will see the transaction will be completed. And now once you will click on the my address again, now you will see now we have the address which we have deployed the smart contract, as we have copied that address to there. So these are about the addresses, and they are just used to like send the money throughout the contracts. So they are just a specific part of any smart contract which we can see. And now after the address, we can now see the next data type, which is the boolean. So it will be the boolean. So we need to define with the keyword of the bool, and then we can just define the modifier again, like the public. It holds the public, and it contains a getter also. So it will be the my bool. It contains the value as the true or false, and the by default value of the boolean contains the false. So we can just define here the boolean again to set the value of the boolean. So it will the bool and like the underscore my bool. And then we can just define the boolean value here, like it will be the my bool will be equals to the temporary variable underscore my bool. So if you will just save, now you will see it. Now you can just try it out by deploying it again. So click on the deploy, and then you will see the smart contract would be deployed. So the by default value of the bool would be equals to the false, but once you will define to that, like Uint 56.1, the string would be anything like hi again. The address would be the same as we have copied from there. The boolean would be equals to the true. If I will now click on the transact, now you will see, click it again on the my bool, now you will see the value would be the true. So now we have changed the value of the boolean as well. So now we have covered some data types, and now the next data type is the struct. So the next data type we will be using will be the struct. So struct are like, they are used to define our own data type in the way like we can have a name, we can have like the image, like we can have anything like the structure of an object. Like the struct are used to define like the structure of an object. So if you want to define here your profile, like you can define as the profile, and you can just define here as the struct, and then you can just define here as the name, like it would be the name, and it will be the type of the string. So you can just define the string as the name, and you can just define the number also, like it will be the Uint, and it will be the number. And now to use the struct, now we can use the struct. So we have defined a new data type as the profile. So now we will use the profile. So we will create a variable of the data type of the profile, like we have the profile, and then we have the type, like we have now we have the modifier, like it will be the public, and then we can now define here the name of the variable, like it will be the my profile. So now we have defined here the struct, and now we can just use here the struct inside the set function values, inside the set values functions. So we can just define here the profile. So now in this function, after all of the things are created, now we can just define the my profile as the my profile will be equals to the profile. So it will be object of the profile. So now we are using the profile, and then we can just define here the name, like the name, it can be like we are now defining as the string. So the name would be the string which we are now defining, and then we can just define here the number also, like it will be the my int. So we can just define the name and the string as the my int. So if I would now save, and if I will now just deploy it again, now we have deployed. Let's try out that what happens. Like we need to define the string as the Uint 256, like it will be the 1. The string will be equals to the like the name, like it will be the Nikhil. Again the address, and I will just copy this address from there. I've copied, and I will just paste this address, and then the boolean by default would be the false, and it is also the false. So once I will click on the transact, so the profile should be updated. So once I will click on the my profile, now you will see now we have the 0 value of the string, which is the name of the Nikhil, and then the 1, we have a number as the 1. So now we have defined here the profile, and now you should know about the profile, that how it works. And it is working because now we have now defined a profile as our own struct data type, where we can have multiple variables of different data types inside that. So this is actually a new data type which we can use in the Solidity. So the next data type we will be using is the array. So to define an array in the Solidity, so we can just define a Uint, and then we are now defining the Uint array. So Uint and then the square brackets, and then we can just define the size of an array, like it will be the 12 elements. So, but now by default I will just create it as the empty, and then you can just define the modifier as the public, and then the name of the array, like it will be the my array. So now we have defined the my array, and the array holds multiple values of the same data type inside the Solidity. So it will hold the values of the Uint data type, like the integer data type, and the non-negative values inside the array. So once we have now defined the my profile also, and now I will just push the elements to the my array as well. So it will the my array dot, it will the push function. I will be using the my int, which we have now defined the my int inside that. So the array will hold the value of the myInt which we have defined. So now everything is clear, and now I've saved, and now this already has compiled the types.sol. So now let's try out what happens. So click on the deploy, smart contract is deployed, just expand it. Now we can just define the set values. So my 250 is like I haven't defined the value as the 10 of the first array, 0 element of the array, and then the string would be like the Nikhil again, and then the my address, I have copied the address from there, so I will just copy again from there, and then the boolean will be, as of now, will be the true. So once I will click on the transact, now you will see transaction is completed successfully, and now this is a success message. So now you will see the address is there which we have defined, and the my array. So now we need to define here the index of the array. Like we have not defined the array at the 0 index because we have just pushed the array to the first time, so it contains a 0 index. So we need to define the index 0. If you will click on the call, now you will see now we have the value of the 10, and if you will just call the set values again, like it will be the 12, and click on the transact, so now the array will hold the second index inside that, like the first index. Click on the call, now the value should be updated to the 12. So this is the array. So now we have covered some of the data types in the Solidity programming language. So this is all for this video. So thank you guys for watching the video, and guys please subscribe to the channel if you are new, and guys please like the video as well so that more people can see this video. So thank you.